March is Women's History Month, and tonight we take a look at a career that is still dominated by men and one local city's push to change that.
According to the Department of Justice, women make up only 13% of law enforcement officers across the country.
In our special report, we show you how the women of the North Las Vegas Police Department are trying to recruit more of their own to the force. As a supervisor in the North Las Vegas Police Department, it is Sergeant Ann Taylor's job to make sure everyone is safe at this crash site when she arrives.
Any critical incident, I'm going to go to.
She worked her way up the ranks over the last 17 years. She became interested in law enforcement after she moved to the Valley and got to know an officer. Growing up, it's something she never saw herself doing.
Never crossed my mind. I did have a teacher when I was in high school who said, hey, you'd be a really good police officer, and I just laughed. I was like, there's no way.
She shattered what is known as the brass ceiling, becoming the first woman in SWAT.
I was very, very nervous initially because there hadn't been a female in this area. You kind of feel like it might be a boys' club, but they were so accepting.
She says women are needed on the force to make it stronger.
Sometimes there is a fear when you have a female victim of males. So it does help to have someone who's a female for them to open up to. I had a situation last night on a call where there was a female victim of a violent crime, and she specifically was asking for a female to talk to.
Officer Lucia Perez is in charge of recruitment and getting more female officers to the city of North Las Vegas.
Right now, we're about at 11%.
She always dreamed of a career in law enforcement.
Honestly, my siblings used to watch Cops all the time, SWAT, Law and Order, and every time I would watch them watching, I was like, oh, I want to do that too.
Her biggest challenge, not her sex, but her height.
I'm 4'11 3/4. My boots give me to 5 feet. So when I go to different calls for service, or when I would pull people over, they would see this small person, and you know, sometimes they wouldn't take me seriously. And I guess when I first came on, I realized that I needed to stand my ground. You know, being smaller, I always needed to present myself as I was 6 feet tall.
She says that goes a long way, and so does her training.
I'll come across, you know, females behind her like, oh my goodness, you're a cop. I'm like, yes, you know, you can do it. There's no height restriction.
North Las Vegas PD has an emphasis on recruiting a department that reflects the diversity of the community. This includes increasing the representation of women in recruit classes to 30% by 2030.
As we increase our numbers, there's more acceptance.
This wall of former chiefs in North Las Vegas is a visual reminder of how dominated by men law enforcement has been. But the latest chief, Pamela Ojeda, who just retired, was the first female. Now, acting chief Jacqueline Gravitt continues female leadership. Sergeant Taylor hopes girls will be inspired by women in uniform, rising through the ranks. She says being an officer, being able to help people, has changed her life. One call 10 years ago stands out.
I went on a domestic call with one of my male partners. The male half, the father in the incident, was drunk and had physically abused the mother. And I remember when we walked into the house that there was a young girl, probably like 7 or 8.
That girl stayed at her desk the entire time officers were at her home.
And we placed the father under arrest and took him out to the police car. And before we left, the little girl came up to me and gave me a drawing. Sorry. And it had me and my partner on it. It said, thank you for helping us. I still have that picture.
It's hung in her locker for a decade now. A reminder, what she and women on the force do every day makes a difference.